So Sonic has reached $1 billion across 3 films. Don't let Disney tell you any different. Hello everyone, back to the Super Smash Bros. Cinematic Universe Box Office Records. And I think it's about high time I tell you how I feel about Sonic 3.
Sonic vs. Mario!
Now this is a very different kind of battle. Since Sonic is still in the teeth of a frankly manipulated beast, Shadow has to represent him in his stead, even though he isn't a playable character. Thank you, Sakurai. However, these 2 films have something in common. They both share a significant amount of elements from their games. So let's compare and contrast these 2 films. Let's get the obvious out of the way. The Super Mario Bros. Movie is the first film in its franchise, and Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is the 3rd film in its franchise. Mario features 8.5 playable characters, with Mario, Luigi, Bowser, Peach, Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Piranha Plant, Yoshi, and Little Mac. Of those characters, only Little Mac doesn't have a voice. Whereas Sonic 3 only features 1 playable character in Sonic and 2 assist trophies, Knuckles and Shadow. Seriously, Sakurai, put in more Sonic characters. Tails, Knuckles, Shadow, and Silver come to mind. You know, your favorite? Now let's get to the nitty-gritty of the story. What I like to call the hero's journey. Let's see which film did it best. In every hero's journey, we have the ordinary world, call to adventure, refusal of the call, meeting the mentor, crossing the threshold, test allies and enemies, approach to the inmost cave, the ordeal, reward, seizing the sword, the road back, resurrection, return with elixir, and the finale, which can be separated into just 3 sections: separation, initiation, and return. Based on that information, let's jump in. The ordinary world is the first stage of the hero's journey. It's where the audience is introduced to the hero's normal life before the adventure begins, what the hero is accustomed to, is used to. In other words, their norm. What Mario's accustomed to is living in Brooklyn, having his brother around, being considered a nobody, and hating mushrooms. Whereas Shadow has a completely different path. All he knows is living in confinement, that humans are not to be trusted, save for Gerald and Maria, and only knows pain from immeasurable loss. One could honestly say that Shadow has gone through 2 hero's journeys. So logically, we could branch the call to adventure in 3. Now, how would you describe the call to adventure? Well, it's also referred to as a herald, as it sets the story rolling by disrupting the comfort of the hero's ordinary world, presenting a challenge or quest that must be undertaken. So what is Mario's herald, or call to adventure? Well, you would think it would be when Brooklyn starts flooding, but that's not the case, as that just adds to his status quo, but is certainly part of it. No, his call to adventure is when he gets separated from Luigi, where he finds himself in a kingdom made entirely out of his least favorite food. Now we can follow Shadow's stories. Spoilers ahead, just saying, even though many people have seen this movie, and I've seen it twice. Once on the 21st, and the other on Christmas Day. Anyway, Shadow was once a lab rat who came out of a meteorite. He was kept merely for his chaos energy until Maria came into his life. She heralded him into a world of fun, which means she served another role, which we'll get into later. Now we will follow the path after those fun times. Shadow was set free upon the world, where he finds out he was confined for 50 years. Afterwards, he encounters Sonic and learns he is not the only hedgehog on this earth. Now we have arrived at the refusal of the call, which for Mario was skipped. Why? Because he already entered the special world. That's the Mushroom Kingdom. And he has absolutely no reason to not look for Luigi. Not to mention, he's already encountered the character that will lead him to the next stage, Toad. However, Shadows are not skipped. First, he has general reluctance, as he is a fish out of water, building expectations about the world around him. In his second path, he can't balk what he knows, as he's been stewing in pain, confusion, and loss for 50 straight years. That's all he knows. Next is the meeting with the mentor. This is the fourth stage of the hero's journey, where the hero receives guidance, training, and confidence to face the adventure ahead. The mentor provides the hero with knowledge, supplies, and confidence to overcome fear. They may also offer training such as physical, mental, or spiritual. And who serves the role as mentor for Mario? That's right, Peach! She takes his perceived notion about mushrooms and flips it on his head, showing how important they can be for his adventure. She introduces him to the world of power-ups. Shadow's first mentor happens to be, of course, Maria. While she doesn't supply him with any new abilities or objects, she introduces important concepts to his overall sense of self, and inspires how he moves overall because of her states. Then on Shadow's second branch, his mentor is actually Sonic. Sonic uses the wisdom he got from Tom earlier in the film to reflect onto Shadow, after Sonic thought he lost Tom and he actually lost Longclaw. In the end, they taught each other the dangers of revenge, which counters the motives of Gerald. And Gerald was actually a twisted mentor for Ivo, which means there are 3 arcs in this movie. Crazy, huh? Crossing the first threshold is the 5th stage. It signifies that the hero has finally committed to the journey. He is prepared to cross the gateway that separates the ordinary world from the special world. The crossing may require more than accepting one's fears, a map, or a swift kick in the rear from a mentor. This is when Mario is traveling with Peach, this was when Shadow is in the thick of having fun, and when Shadow is playing with Sonic & Co. That is the end of Departure, leading into Initiation. Next is Tests, Allies, and Enemies. Let's take this out quickly. Mario was given a test against Donkey Kong. Using his knowledge of power-ups, Mario befriends Donkey Kong. Mario makes an enemy of Bowser. Shadow is tested against Gun, befriends Maria and Gerald, and makes an enemy of Gun, which somehow exists and doesn't exist back then. Talk about a plot hole. After Gun kills Maria, Shadow is tested by Sonic and Gun. He befriends Robotnik, Stone, and finally Sonic. Stone was on both sides in this movie. Quite nice. And finally, he makes an enemy of Gerald. Next is the approach to the innermost cave. This is the 7th stage in the hero's journey, where the hero prepares for the final challenge, or ordeal, by making preparations to face their greatest enemy, or the Shadow.
How ironic.
We'll make this quick too. Mario's was when he was stuck in a mare with Donkey Kong. Shadow for the first time never prepared for a battle, whereas the second time was when he was on the moon with Sonic. Question, how is it that Sonic can breathe on the moon but not underwater? Next is the Ordeal, and it's the 8th stage of the hero's journey, and is a major crisis or test that the hero must face. It is a central event in the second act of the story. Mario starts his by crashing a wedding and saving Luigi, leading Bowser to angrily summon a Bomber Bill to take on Mario. Shadow took on the offensive against Gun. Then Shadow takes on the offensive against Gerald's enemy robots with Sonic. Next is the Reward, a stage where the hero has survived death, overcome his greatest fear, slain the dragon, or weathered the crisis of the heart, and now earns the reward that he sought. The hero's reward comes in many forms: a magical sword, an elixir, greater knowledge or insight, and reconciliation with a lover. Mario defeats the Bomber Bill, Shadow is confined, and Shadow takes the laser head on. This is the end of initiation and the beginning of return. We're in the home stretch now. Next is the road back. The hero must finally recommit to completing the journey and accept the road back to the ordinary world. The hero's success in the special world may make it difficult to return. Like crossing the threshold, the road back needs an event that will push the hero through the threshold back to the ordinary world. For Mario, that's easy. After defeating the Bomber Bill, it causes a chain reaction that sends him back to Brooklyn, along with everyone else. With Shadow, we have looped back to a previous plot point. He escapes confinement. And finally, Shadow escapes death and finds himself back on Earth. We have ended his final plot point from Sonic 3. We have now arrived at the resurrection. It may be a physical ordeal or final showdown between hero and Shadow. However, the ticking clock of the road back has been set. This battle is for much more than the hero's life. Other lives or an entire world may be at stake, and the hero must now prove that he has achieved heroic status and willingly accept his sacrifice for the benefit of the ordinary world. So Mario has found himself back in Brooklyn. Unfortunately, so has Bowser. So Mario has to take on Bowser by himself until his brother joins in the fight. And then we find ourselves back at Shadow, where he makes the decision and makes the ultimate sacrifice and takes on the laser head on, after Sonic loses his consciousness. We have finally arrived at Return with the Elixir. This is the final reward earned on the hero's journey. The hero has been resurrected, purified, and has earned the right to be accepted back into the ordinary world and share the elixir of the journey. The true hero returns with an elixir to share with others or heal a wounded land. The elixir can be of a great treasure or magic potion. It could also be love, wisdom, or simply the experience of surviving the special world. And Mario gets this in spades. After both Mario and Luigi assume the superstar, they defeat Bowser and his troops, shrink him to fit in a mason jar, and receive accolades aplenty, being able to journey back and forth between both worlds effortlessly in the end. Whereas we don't know what happened to Shadow after he landed on Earth. And that was the hero's journey. Now for some of my personal thoughts, with some pros and cons. Starting with the Super Mario Bros. Movie. For pros, Brian Tyler's score for the Super Mario Bros. Movie is incredible. If you want a blueprint of how a video game movie should sound, boom! He was also the same guy that scored Transformers 1. Just saying. This is Illumination's best rendered world to date. However, if you added the virtual camera work of Migration, you would have the best video game movie ever. That film is criminally underrated. I kid you not. Every single Nintendo character in the film was beautifully realized. I cannot tell you how incredibly they did Dry Bones in this movie. My jaw was on the floor. And they established its lore with a joke. And it works! I cannot wait for the sequel. I cannot wait for news on this sequel. March 10th cannot come any sooner. Now let's address some cons. Some choices for voice casting were uninspired. Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong? Really? He's the most overrated Ukrainian Jew in Hollywood today. If they give him a spin-off, he should be contractually obligated to get voice acting lessons. Never trust anyone who hates Christmas. Also, Fred Armisen is not Cranky Kong. That man does not sound like an old dude. My grandfather played an old man for a living, but he's been dead since 2009. Even Aaron Tager from the original Donkey Kong Country cartoon was a better Cranky Kong. Also, are they ever going to address why they retconned Donkey Kong Jr. from the continuity? I'm going to introduce a brand new portmanteau to the lexicon. He was retconned. Also, they conveniently removed the existence of floatanium from the film's narrative. Yeah, go ahead and put the reason why blocks are floating in mid-air on the cutting room floor. Also, Luigi badly needed his own subplot. What we got was fantastic, but he didn't have his own hero's journey. It would have given the end of the film a much better payoff. Stupid film length requirements. The only way to fix this is to make the next movie based on the Mario and Luigi series. Partners in Time would be the most amazing game to use as a blueprint. It would expand the lore. It would bring us EGAD. It would set up Luigi's Mansion. It would be perfect! Not to mention, it would introduce Fuffle to the universe. And I cannot tell you how giddy the world would be if they knew he was in the film. Sugar Conroy, Emil, would flip his freaking lid if he found out that he was in the film. And if there are other universes we could introduce Shroobs, we would have more of the Lumas, and have a favorite in Rosalina appear at the end. I mean, in their own words, they said that they would add characters that were deep cut. And what are more deep-cut characters than the ones from the Mario and Luigi series? Just saying! Now let's look at Sonic 3 and its pros. It cannot be understated how amazing the advertising department was for this film. On all cylinders. I mean, did you see all those Christmas posters? Bangers! All of them! And every single poster featuring Shadow was bad ass! They did this Sonic Adventure 2 Battle Fan good last year. And again, it's because of that game that Sonic is in fact in Smash. Why Sakurai gave Shadow the middle finger for 2 games straight, I will never know. No, 3. Brawl, Smash 4, and Ultimate. I mean, that does explain why Live and Learn isn't in the soundtrack, other than that lawsuit. Speaking of Live and Learn, it's awesome! It's in this movie! And when you hear it, it is actually earned. Also, every single Sonic character had a role to play in the film. Now for some of the cons. It's gonna get a bit tight in there. I hate to say it, but not every joke lands, and Ivo and Gerald were hit or miss. I didn't like their battle. I found it dorky. And they squandered a perfect way to enter Rouge into the universe because of screen real estate. Rockwell could have been Rouge! But no. Well, at least we have Amy. I don't like Amy. I'm sorry. I don't like Amy. She's cringe as all hell. See, I grew up with Sonic Sat-Am that had Sally, who was awesome. She had Nicole. She had Bunny. She had Rooter. Stupid Antoine! I really don't know what Rob Paulson sees in that character. I don't know. I have to say, I hate you, Ken Penders. Yeah, everything in Archie Comics is mine. And last, they put the role assessment thing a little too close to the chest. They made Shadows Brooding a gimmick. Some people liked that. I didn't, I'm sorry. No. Also aside, they turned BioLizard into a stupid cameo, not an actual character. It's like they're so afraid of putting in the bosses from the games as actual bosses. Other than Robotnik, everyone else is not allowed to play. So that's how I felt about the films. And so I give the Super Mario Bros. Movie still 4.5 out of 5, and I give Sonic 3 4.5 out of 5. They were good, both in their own ways. Funny how they also omitted important information on the cutting room floor for Sonic 3. How Gerald was still alive during the film. Because of the quill. Because of chaos energy. Crazy. Also, I bet you didn't notice the choice of music I had for this review. It's almost like Mario and Sonic were once in a conjoined universe playing sports together. Stupid NFTs. And there you go. So now let's look at domestic. And Sonic the Hedgehog 3 has jumped 2 spots, having currently $187,508,000. Again, this is just the 3rd week of release, and it's got plenty of time to cook before Dogman is in theaters. Now let's go have a look at international, shall we? And would you look at that? Our friends overseas have finally made their mark on the box office, where we now have $148,800,000 to work with. Which means the Super Mario Bros. Movie Japanese dub has been KO'd out of the ranking. And would you look at that? All 3 Sonic movies are in a row on the ranking. Beautiful, isn't it? But they're in the wrong order. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Now let's see what happened in worldwide. We have crossed 300 million, guys. $336,308,000 as of right now. However, if you were to add up all of the totals for each of the Sonic movies, we get $1,061,445,101, which is no small feat, I'll tell you. But it's not as much as one movie got in the Mario franchise. There's a lot of earning to go before we get there. So how about a nice small review from Secret Level for episode 2? Now how about something with a little more punch? Episode 2, Sifu, It Takes a Life. Based off the game as part of the beat-em-up genre. Developed and published by Slowclap, which released initially on May 3rd of 2021. The story was written by Rich Larson, who helped write the episode Ice on Love, Death, and Robots on Season 2, Episode 2. This is his second Episode 2 in a row. Honestly, I thought this was a beautiful short that demonstrated the game's premise perfectly. Because every single time the protagonist dies, they are resurrected by the magical talisman that is on his body and ages up, gaining access to more powerful attacks but reducing his health. And the best thing about this short, it has a message. It's about the effort you put into your life by the amount of experience you have. And is it worth it? I've never even played the game, and I thought it was incredible. It was released for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and the Windows computer, as well as the Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. They really suck in the name department. And pretty good reviews overall. Not bad, Amazon. Not bad. Now let's see what we have for us in the news department. So apparently Sonic 3 is coming to digital on January 21st. I mean, Paramount, that doesn't give this movie a lot of legs. Let's see how far it goes before this month is over. So now let's see if there's anything new in the upcoming films. And would you look at that, we have a brand new Sonic movie to wait for. But first, let's go over again what we do know. And that's a Minecraft movie opens on April 4th of 2025 this year by Warner Brothers. And so far, the only playable character from Smash that is recognizable is Zombie. Maybe even Enderman, but that's it. Then we have Street Fighter on the March 20th of 2026 by Sony and Legendary. Then we have the Super Mario Bros. Movie 2 on April 3rd of 2026 by Universal Illumination. And then we have Sonic the Hedgehog 4. Coming out spring 2027 by Paramount and Skydance. But would you look at that? We actually have 2 shows that we can await in just a few months. In fact, we have one that's coming out next week, and that's Castlevania Nocturne Season 2 on January 16th, 2025, this year on Netflix. And also Secret Level Season 2 has also been greenlit, and using educated guessing, we can expect it by April, since it only took 4 months from ordering to release for Season 1. Next are the projects that are pretty much in limbo, specifically Metal Gear Solid, Detective Pikachu 2, Mega Man, and Pac-Man. Good grief. At least we know that Legend of Zelda at Sony's okay. Though I find it really strange that CES 2025 just happened and there is no new information about Zelda, even though they announced a number of Sony projects. Go figure. Then again, it just started. It ends on the 10th, so we might get something else. CES is short for the Consumer Electronics Show, by the way. We might get information on the Switch too before we get information on Zelda. No, that's just pretty much assured at this point, because Nintendo is doing squat to quash the freaking leaks on that system. Literally the only thing we don't know on that system is the games that are going to be on it. That is it. And probably even the GUI, aka the graphical user interface. Last but not least, we have the live-action Pokemon series featuring Red on Netflix, with currently no release date. Hopefully Pokemon Day is fruitful. And now we are done. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe, and smash that bell to get notifications on the channel where everything grows on you.